Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Again, apologies for the audio and video, but I'm in the middle of a move, but we're going to be here for a weekly meta, and we finally have Alchemy data thanks to Untapped GG. It is the companion tool that runs alongside Arena, free to use, tracks all your game stats, stuff like that. If you're interested in using it, the link is in my video description down below. But Alchemy is the new set introduced by Wizards. It is a digital kind of rebalanced set with new direct to digital cards, stuff like Seek, Draft. You kind of get cards from outside the game. So it got mixed reviews. People are like, this is the end of Magic, but a lot of y'all are liars apparently, because there's 57,000 matches played. The format's been a lot of fun from what I've been playing. I've been predominantly playing just this, as well as some historic mono red. But we're going to go over the meta and to see how things are like after the first 4 days of the set. So as always, what we do here is we look Platinum to Mythic. There's 57,000 best of 1 matches. We'll look at best of 3 as well. And then towards the end of the video, we'll go over what are the most played cards from the new set. And what we have first, 69% win rate. Again, this is fairly early into the format, so population sizes will be fairly small, so take it with a grain of salt. But up first is the Mono Black Sacrifice, the Mono Black Drains deck. Crokies has been working on this one, but it's kind of the core built around the card Sanguine Brushstroke. 3 mana, whenever you sack a blood token, you gain a life, you drain a life, but it also conjures, so creates a copy of Blood Artist onto the battlefield. This isn't a token, it's a copy of the creature. So if the creature goes to your graveyard with stuff like Agadeem's Awakening, you can bring it back to the board. And what you're trying to do with this deck is drain out your opponent with stuff like Blood Artist. You have Meat Hook Massacre, and then you're just sacrificing stuff for value to draw cards. You have Fell Stingers, Deadly Disputes to draw cards. Voldaren Bloodcaster makes blood tokens, so you drain them that way. And then you have Cursebound Witch that lets you draft from a spell book. Within that spell book, there's stuff like Cauldron Familiar, there's Witch's Oven, there's Witch's Vengeance, there's Witch's Cottage. I played a lot of this deck. This has been my most favorite deck from the format. You get like the curses, the black curses in there, so it's really kind of just playing into that theme of drains. So this deck's been a lot of fun. I've been playing a variation. I just play Lolth in mine, cut down 2 of these and play 2 Lolth. And then I play the Voldaren land, blood token making land over the hostile. Next up is Esper Party. And this deck here is kind of showcasing it's kind of a cleric party tribal deck, but really it's cleric tribal. And you have Inquisitor Captain, which is a new card. It is collected company on a creature. So Inquisitor Captain comes into play, and you basically look through your library, and it seeks 2 cards to your hand that are 3 mana or less, and then you choose which one of those 2 cards you want to put into play. And what you do with this is you get copies of clone effects like Glasspool Mimic to make multiple copies of the Inquisitor Captain, and then basically you build your own repeatable collected company. We're seeing this a lot in Historic, where there's a lot more of these copy-style effects. And then you're just playing your core of the Cleric package. You have the Pyre to draw you cards, Aura to recycle, and then gain a bunch of life. And then there's also this Angel of Unity, which perpetually, so they always get the additional +1/1 power whenever it enters the battlefield or you cast another party member. So they're all clerics, or I think this is just a core. So the only one that doesn't is the Skyclave Apparition. Then we have Mono Red Dragons coming in next, and this is kind of showcased around 2 new dragons. You have Fearsome Whelp, this tiny little whelp. 2 mana 1/1 at the beginning of your end step. All the dragons in your hand perpetually get this spell cost 1 less to cast. So it just makes all your expensive dragons that much cheaper. Paired with Blood Moon kind of dragony, Burning Earth, Town Razor Tyrant, 4 mana, you target a land. It loses all abilities, so if it's a creature, land, Field of Ruin, anything like that. And then at the beginning of their upkeep, either they take 2 damage or they have to sacrifice that land. So it's just kind of really good at putting pressure on. You have your Goldspan, the nerf Goldspan that doesn't get treasures if it's targeted, Inferno, as well as Moonveil, some Chandras for card advantage, and then Orb of the Dragonkind for ramp, as well as card advantage. And you got a burn package to pair with that. We see Azorius Aggro, which is kind of a similar idea. So this is kind of the evolution of mono white aggro. You have Sigardian Evangelical, which enters the battlefield, and you get a copy of it conjured to your hand, so it creates a copy into your hand. You have to cast it that turn. If you don't, then you lose it. And then it also taps target permanent you don't control. So it's a way to kind of create a creature and then create a creature, so late game it just fuels you some value there. Same idea, Inquisitor Captain with the Glasspool Mimics to get extra copies. This just kind of goes through your deck and pulls some value. We have Esper Party, same idea, just different numbers in terms of the clerics. So we're seeing a few of these cleric Inquisitor packages seem to be quite popular. We have Rakdos Dragons, which was a CGB deck. Very similar idea, but you get Kalayan as another 2-drop accelerant, as well as Immerstrom Predator and one Olivia to reanimate stuff. Mono White Aggro, so no copying off Inquisitor, but just collected company Inquisitor. You're playing some copies of Captain Urbanheart, which taxes cards drawn and reduces casting costs of cards you have in hand. Nothing else new with that one there. Mono White's not the same force it is in Standard. Another kind of take you're seeing, so it's kind of like these black drains, these Inquisitor decks that are either, cleric focused or mono white / blue focused for clone effects. We have mono black sacrifice, just another version of the deck, some numbers slightly changed. We see Gruul Werewolves with a card, Tenacious Pup. So next creature card you cast gets a +1/1 counter, trample, and vigilance. So really nice when you pair it into something like Rahilda that draws you cards, or Werewolf Pack Leader becomes a 2-mana 4/4 vigilance trample that draws you cards. I was doing that in mono green Stompy for a bit. That was pretty fun. We see the Izzet control deck. I think this is another Croaky's one. You have Geist Chandler to just reduce the cost of your spells that you cast to make stuff like Magma Opus a whole lot cheaper. We have mono white aggro and just kind of going through that. Mono red dragons, mono black sacrifice, just seeing if there's anything else unique. This deck's this is pretty much the same. It's just a Rakdos sack. Gruul Werewolves, Esper Party, Selesnya Humans, kind of similar idea. Expedition Supplier, just kind of conjuring. So we're kind of towards the bottom here. In mono green, they did get the Lupine Harbinger, just a nice big hasty threat that could come in and pressure the opponent. And then with its foretell, each turn that it's been foretelled, it enters with more counters. So it's kind of a late game bomb, or just having another trample haste threat along with the oddity has been pretty good in the games that I've played with this mono green deck. Is this version playing Garruk as well? Yeah, so this Garruk, I ran into it. The creatures it conjures, so notably this conjures to the board, and it was something I missed off my first kind of assessment of the card. So they're not the greatest creatures, they're just kind of like elks and stuff like that. Sorry about that. Oh gosh. Sorry about that. I am working on a very tiny laptop that's touchscreen, and I accidentally touched it. So mono green. So the Garruk summons like elks and just like beasts and kind of random creatures, but just kind of constantly putting them into the play and getting counters and making them cost cheaper has been pretty effective in that right there. I just want to see if there's any other unique decks if we're just kind of feeling that theme. So we see some mono red aggro. This card's been kind of underwhelming. The Summon Bolts hasn't been the best from what I've seen. I got to play a bit more with it to see how it plays out. And then we're in like the sub 50%, so we won't look at those. Sub 50% aren't win rate decks. Best of 3. Best of 3 always has smaller population size, so we're only at 4,100 games. And we see Boros Dragons coming in at 67.5%. I think Hoogland was playing this, but you get Nadar. I've always really liked this card, just good value engine. You got Adult Gold Dragon on the top end, and then your same kind of core idea, just ramping up with the Fearsome Whelp. What card is this? I own 0 of them. Is this the Tybalt? It's probably the Tybalt, the new Tybalt. It's a Mythic 2 that I don't own. So then we're seeing copies of Gruul. Let me change the population size. There's just not a lot of games here. Yeah, population's too low. Usually what you can do is sort, but we'll see a couple ideas with, we don't have the win rates here yet. Gruul Werewolves, we have a couple forms of that, but they're playing, like I mentioned, the interaction of Tenacious Pup just being another good one drop. You have Rahilda, and then just kind of giving things trample vigilance. Seems pretty good, so a couple different versions of the Gruul deck. Seems like Gruul's quite popular. We have the Mono Black Sacrifice, similar to Best of One. You're just getting some more options in Best of Three, discard, hand hate, stuff like that. The creature matchup's usually pretty good. It's the control matchup that can be a little bit tricky. Some versions of Mono Red Dragons, Mono Red Aggro, and there's a lot of Werewolves. Werewolf seems to be pretty popular in these Dragon decks in Best of Three. Not seeing really much Mono White Aggro, just a bunch of different Boros Dragons lists. Salt Ice Storm the Festival. Interesting, we're not seeing really any results for Omnath, 5-color or 4-color Omnath, 5 mana now. We see some vampires coming in. So we'll probably have to take back and see how these decks fare come next week when we have a bigger population size. You're seeing some of these blue-white control decks, and really what you're doing is Teferi with the key to the archive. You can get stuff like Wrath of God. You can get Lightning Helix, Electrolyze. You can get Approach of the Second Sun, which is kind of your win condition. Teferi untaps it as well, which is nice. So they kind of just play in that regard there. It's you have stuff like Discover the Formula, which draws you card advantage and reduces the cost of things perpetually. You have Unexpected Conversion, which gets you some card advantage as well through Seeking. Some of the decks are playing... there's the new Uncommon, I believe it is, that lets you shuffle cards back into your library, 4 cards. So you play 2 copies of that, and then you basically just loop through. Because of the Discover the Formula, it perpetually makes them cheaper. So when they go back into your library and they come back to your hand, like between this, like the Geist Chandler and this, I've had a lot of people 1 mana divide by 0 me, which just feels so demoralizing. So we're seeing that, some mono green Stompies, as well as some Izzet controls. We have the nerfed Alrens, so not too many Alrens decks, which is nice. You're seeing a variety of decks, at least at this point. But best of 3, we need a bigger population to see the win rates. But best of 1 seems to be where a lot of the focus is right now. Week 1's always kind of tough for the data, but I want to get something out rather than nothing. So looking at the best of 1 meta for the week, we have the most popular cards right now. Tenacious Pup is above and beyond the most played card so far at 17% of decks being included. It's got about 50% win rate. We're seeing a lot of the Dragon cards doing well, Town Raiser and Fearsome Whelp, both being at 3,200 games. Some Rahilda, Inquisitor Captain, the Brushstroke. Key to the Archives, a lot of people are playing it. Not a lot of games are being won with it. And then we're seeing some of this line's being showing up in a lot of lists. So if you haven't gotten like Forsaken Crossroads, this might be something you want to pick up some numbers of. It's being played in pretty much all the multicolor decks, just as a way to get some card advantage and just another potentially untapped duel if you're on the play. We're seeing Geist Chandlers, the Lupine Harbingers. This card's in actually kind of a beating. If it's a good tempo play, while it doesn't fully destroy the creatures, like I kept just getting taxed over and over, so like my 1 mana creatures were costing like 5 mana. So this is a tough card to play around with the Black Drains deck. I found this to be the most cumbersome. Like so many times I'd rather they just Doomscar, but the Exile was so much worse. But we're seeing like kind of these cards. I would say at this point, if you're kind of hesitant on crafting certain ones, the Dragons decks seem to be really good. The Inquisitor Captain decks seem to be performing. I love Aristocrat style decks. I played the original Aristocrats deck in paper, so anything with Blood Artist will be the first deck I'm gravitating towards. So I've been playing a lot of the mono black deck. And then in best of 3, we're seeing, again, like the Captain being the most prevalent card, the Dragon package, so you're seeing Town Raiser and Fearsome Whelp, the Pup, and then just kind of the red. One card you're seeing a lot of is Brittle Blast, either sideboard or main, just the new Soul Seer kind of effect, deal 5 damage, exile, perpetually gets it, so even if it dies on a future turn, kind of works. Then we're seeing some of the kind of white creatures And Break Expectations is a sideboard card. Target player reveals all cards with mana value 2 or greater from their hand. You choose a card from among those cards, exile, and then they draft. So it's kind of a big duress. Thoughtseize can't hit the small stuff, but then they get a draft. So you hope that it hits the worst card. Interesting to see how that. But again, with best 3, we just don't have enough population to see. So I'll come back next week with a full meta breakdown. Hopefully we have the full population by that point. As always, if you do enjoy the content, it's greatly appreciated if you could drop a like, comment, and subscribe. Again, I apologize right now for the current setup. It's not the best, but I'm trying to get something out while I'm in between houses. I should be settled in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be back with more gameplay content. We usually do a video a day, standard, historic, or alchemy, and we'll continue that going forward. As always, appreciate the support, and happy holidays, everyone. We'll catch you next time.